Okay, we'll start with this. A recent addition to the upcoming Clarissa Shields versus Kay Scott fight set to go down on the 15th of next month. Unbeaten up-and-comer of Puerto Rico, Ashley Ann Lozada, will be taking on seasoned veteran of Mexico, Paulette Cuesta, in an attempt to move up the rank standings and position herself to fight for the newly vacated WBA title at Super Bantam, left behind by Ellie Scottney, the once undisputed champion set to move up in weight. Ashley Ann Lozada sports an unblemished record of 4 wins with no losses and no draws, 1 recorded knockout to Paulette, who sports a professional record of 19 wins with 5 losses, 1 draw, 4 recorded knockouts, having been knocked out once in 25 professional bouts.
Jeez, look at the jawline on that broad.
Last in action last month, opposite the ring, Carla Davila, who she decisioned over 8 rounds, currently on a 2-fight winning streak, after having dropped a decision to Ana Villalba in December of 2024. Paulette is an experienced fighter, having been in there with champions like Sigolene Lafarve, Yami Mercado, Nazarena Romero. Nazarena knocked her out.
So Paulette is definitely a lot more experienced than Ashley Ann Lozada, who only has about 4 fights in her CV. What you need to know about this fighter is she was the first Puerto Rican female boxer to represent Puerto Rico in the Olympics as an amateur. In that way, she's no spring chicken. She's 35 years old, the same as Paulette, not having all the experience of a Paulette. What she does have is a standout amateur record, and you can more or less see that based on who she's been fighting in her first 4 fights. These are experienced fighters. Melissa Odessa Parker, former champion Deborah Dionysius of Argentina. I've seen 1 or 2 of Ashley Ann Lozada's fights, and she has the look of a boxer-puncher. The island of Puerto Rico does produce a lot of boxer-punchers, almost in the same abundance as Mexico produces pressure fighters. Yeah, I noticed that.
So for a fighter that's 35 years old, having debuted in February of last year as a professional, she doesn't have all the time in the world to become a world champion and do something in the paid ranks. She has to move quickly, and that's what she's doing. This fight with Paulette, if she can win it, it's not for the title. The WBA title will not be on the line in this fight. Perhaps Ashley Ann is 1 fight away from challenging for the full title to become a full world champion. She's solid. I've seen her fight, and she's good. Who she might have to go through, provided she wins next month, is another Mexican fighter in Mayeli Flores. Oh, shit is right. There are very few fighters in the women's super bantamweight division that can handle the relentless pressure of Mayeli Flores. But that is who Ashley Ann Lozada would have to go through to get at the black and gold title, as Mayeli is currently the highest rated contender in those ranked standings. She's with MVP, whereas Ashley Ann is with Salida.
They're gonna have to work together on that one.
But that is the way it breaks down. I think Ashley Ann Lozada is good enough at least to beat Paulette Cuesta via points decision. She can do that, but whether or not she can handle Mayeli Flores when the time comes, that's a story for another day. Men's super lightweight news. Shakur Stevenson took to his social media and stated, "Okay, now that dude made up his mind and picked Keyshawn, please, everyone with some real money, hit my phone, cause I'm taking all bets."
He's backing his buddy Keyshawn to win it, and he's taking all comers, he's taking all bets. Though, of course, if Devin Haney is fighting Keyshawn Davis, he's not fighting Shakur Stevenson, who, last I checked, was still WBO super lightweight champion. So who's he gonna fight? Cause Zuffa doesn't have a super lightweight division. And Shakur Stevenson has already blown off the idea that he should move back down to the lightweight division to fight Rayo Valenzuela. Rayo wants to fight, but Shakur, he doesn't care.
He doesn't need it. So what should Shakur Stevenson with Zuffa behind him do? And because he's still WBO champion at 140, get him a unification match. Get him some other champions at that weight to fight, though. Who's available?
Not Dalton Smith. They've just rescheduled his mandated title defense against Alberto Puello for the fall. Dalton Smith, the WBC champion, is not available.
What about the IBF champion?
There ain't one. The next IBF champion will be crowned when Mexico's own Lindolfo Delgado takes on Artur Biarzlanov on the undercard of Canelo vs. Mobili in October.
WBC champion's busy. There ain't no IBF champion to fight. That leaves only the WBA champion, the philosopher, Gary Antoine Russell.
Oh my fucking god.
You know, this guy likes to sit around quoting Lao Tzu, The Art of War, 48 Rules of Power, or the 50 Rules of Power, whatever the fuck it is
Reality. Gary Antoine Russell is not a very talked about fighter. He's not even a blip on anybody's radar in spite of being a world champion. It feels like it's been a long time since he won that WBA title, and I don't imagine that the offers are pouring in for him to do anything.
In other words, he's not busy, and Shakur Stevenson needs a dance partner, so who better than another champion at his weight? Now, the story is that Shakur doesn't really care to do Undisputed at 140, but I don't think he has much of a choice. You weren't able to get the Devin Haney fight.
Zuffa paid a lot of money to bring you over. They've got to find somebody for you to fight. I think making a Gary Antoine Russell fight won't cost them as much as making a Devin Haney fight would have.
That you can offer Gary Antoine Russell more money than he's ever made, but still less than what you were about to waste on Devin Haney.
Go, Bevan!
They can make it. They better at least try, because what's the point in making a high-profile acquisition like a Shakur Stevenson if you don't have anybody for him to fight over there? They have no choice but to look outside of their own borders for opponent options.
Wins.
What's funny is that stylistically, this is not an easy fight for Shakur Stevenson, who's a pure boxer, where Gary is a pressure guy. Like William Zepeda was a pressure guy, Gary is a pressure guy, just bigger and at 140. So it might be a fun fight to watch. An aesthetically pleasing fight.
Though perhaps a fight that Shakur Stevenson can win, I don't think Gary Antoine Russell is on the level with his pressure fighting that Shakur is with his pure boxing. It's not just the styles of the fighters, it's also the level at which they compete. A level, B level, C level, D, E, so on and so forth.
It's not just about the styles, it's also about the level at which they compete. So, what happens if you have a B-level pressure fighter against an A-level pure boxer? The pure boxer is still going to struggle with that style, because stylistically they're polar opposites. But because they compete at a higher level, they can still win. Like what you saw in Stevenson versus Zepeda, you might also see that in Stevenson versus Russell.
I can't think of anybody better for Shakur Stevenson to fight now that Devin Haney is out of the running.
Not that long ago, the story was that Shakur wasn't interested in unifying titles and vying for Undisputed, but you tell me,
The fuck else is there for him to do?
who the fuck else is out there for him to fight that's available and actually brings something to the table? I think in this situation, Gary Antoine Russell would be a good shout.
You okay with the system? You know, Terrence talked about the fees and things like that.
You need to pay
Yeah.
because they sanction the fight. They put the judges. They put the referee. They work. They make the bell. They have a office, and they need to make money.
So you've never had a problem with
Need
that?
to pay, no, I don't.
Maybe Canelo Alvarez doesn't have a problem with the alphabets now, but he once did. Way back when in 2016, when the World Boxing Council tried to hit the gas on a fight between him and Gennady Golovkin. We remember that Canelo took their belt and chucked it, threw it in the garbage, and they've been kissing his ass ever since.
Because he showed them who's boss.
But at that time, he wasn't happy with the alphabets. He wasn't happy with the WBC, what he described as their manufactured deadline for him to start negotiations with Gennady. He wanted to do it on his own time, give himself more time to acclimate to the middleweight division. Now, he might have softened his stance on them since then, and he's more willing to play ball, understanding their role in the sport of boxing. In truth, I've never advocated for the alphabets to go away. I've only ever advocated for them to do their fucking job. Two in particular, the WBC and the WBA. I have no real issues with the WBO, and my only issue with the IBF is their treatment of Jai Opataya. But most of the time, they do a pretty good job too.
It's not that I want them to go away, it's that I want them to do their job.
Regulate the sport, give it a hierarchy, order fights in a timely fashion, stop doing special favors for promoters and fighters.
Stop mass-producing alphabet titles to give everybody a belt.
The belts are a necessary component to what makes this a sport and makes people want to watch, in the sense that it gives the fights meaning. because without that, it's just a bunch of random guys from a bunch of random countries fighting each other. What gives it purpose is crowning the best one among them. The tie that binds are the belts that they fight for. That's what brings all these fighters together. They're different managers and promoters.
Without the belts, there wouldn't have been any reason for Tyson Fury to fight Alexander Usyk, and we wouldn't have got that fight, so we would have never known who was the better fighter. And it's the same across all these weight classes. Without Undisputed, there wouldn't have been any reason for Dimitri Bivol to fight Artur Beterbiev, Spence to fight Crawford.
So understand that I'm not advocating that the belts go away. I'm advocating that they do a better job of regulating the sport, which definitely prides itself on its own lineage, its own history, what other legendary boxers have held certain alphabet titles, and being able to say that you held the same belt that Muhammad Ali used to hold, or Harvin Magler.
The other purpose that the belts serve is they set the stage for what can make a fight a big fight. If you've got some up-and-comer who becomes a contender, subsequently a world champion, and some other guy somewhere is doing the same thing.
When they fight each other, because they're both world champions, it has meaning, it has purpose. But that's not to say that the system is perfect, because it's not. Fighters get fucked over by these alphabet organizations all the time. So all I've ever advocated for is for them to do a better job.
Two in particular.
The idea is, some up-and-comer, some contender that probably isn't all that well-known can get well-known by going through these sanctioning bodies, by climbing up those ranks and fighting in those eliminators,
to eventually get their shot at the big time, at fighting the somebodies, on the premise that the somebodies usually have belts. So if you're a contender, going through these channels, you'll have leverage to either get a fight or get a belt.
In an ideal world, that's how it would work. That's the function they're supposed to serve. Now, where things start to go wrong is when they start doing favors for people. Favors for promoters, favors for fighters, and the system, it ain't working the way that it's supposed to.
But I've never advocated for the alphabet organizations to go away completely, only to do a better job. The job that they are intended to do.
He could be maybe the next Mexican star, maybe?
Not Mexican.
Mexican-American?
It's different.
Yeah.
Mexican-American, yeah.
Who could be the next Mexican star? Is there someone that you're seeing right now that could be the guy?
Mexican-American, I think Ryan have the possibility to.
Right.
The more possibilities to be. He have a lot of charisma, a lot of talent, and I think he's the next Mexican-American. Mexico, we'll see.
Is there anyone right now that you see that...
No, at that level, no, not yet.
Not yet. Is that surprising?
Surprising because
it feels like it's
always is somebody there after the other.
The next one, yeah.
The next one. But
It isn't always clear who the next face of boxing is going to be, because if you would have told me in 2015 and 2016 that it would end up being Canelo, given all the heat that he was taking at that time for not fighting Gennady Golovkin.
Now, Canelo was still popular at that time, still a big draw, still worth a lot of money, but not yet the face of boxing, and he didn't really become that until the second Gennady Golovkin fight.
So that if you would have told me before the first one that this is the guy that's going to carry the sport on his back and generate the most interest, the most money for it, I wouldn't have believed you, because at that time, he was a social pariah, facilitating the point that it's not always clear who the next face of boxing is going to be. They brought up Ryan.
Is there any chance of that shit happening?
It was important for Canelo Alvarez to make the distinction between a Mexican fighter, a Mexican national, and a Mexican American, as that's not the same thing, least of all to the Mexicans. Oscar De La Hoya was the face of boxing once, but even Oscar acknowledged that he was never fully accepted by the Mexicans.
So it is important to make that distinction.
Evaluating whether or not Ryan Garcia has the ingredients to one day become the face of boxing, because he's not there yet.
He's got some of the right ingredients, but not all of them.
He's got popularity, he's always had that, and he's got his hands on the pulse of the younger generation, the teens and tweens and streaming crowd. He's got that going for him, so to some degree, he has charisma. He has a good abundance of opponents.
What is consistent with every fighter that went on to become the face of boxing is they had a lot of opponents to choose from, because without that, how can you be consistently in the biggest fights?
Sugar Ray Leonard had a lot of opponent options. Oscar De La Hoya had a lot of opponent options. Floyd, Canelo, they had a lot of guys to choose from.
So does Ryan.
He's got the winner of Teofimo Lopez versus Rolly Romero, the rematch with Devin Haney. Down the line, maybe a fight with Shakur Stevenson. Further down the line, maybe a fight between him and Emiliano Vargas, a la Oscar De La Hoya versus Fernando Vargas. You see the parallel? That could be worth some money, provided things fall into place. So Ryan does have charisma, popularity, he has appeal, he has a lot of opponents to choose from. What is he missing? What could stop him from becoming the face of boxing?
He's inconsistent.
He blows hot and cold depending on who he's fighting. Losing to Gervonta Davis is one thing, but losing to Rolly Romero is quite another. He was widely expected by everybody, me included, to win that fight, and he fucking lost.
He's inconsistent. In my humble opinion, Ryan Garcia is not that good. He's got some of the right ingredients, but he is greatly lacking in the ability department. I don't look at him and see a pound-for-pound hopeful, a pound-for-pound fighter, a fighter of the same ilk as a Roy Jones Jr., an Oscar De La Hoya, a Floyd Mayweather, a Canelo Alvarez, because what else is consistent with the face of boxing, no matter what era we're talking about, is they were some of the best fighters, if not the best fighters, in the entire sport. And that is not Ryan.
You can say Ryan is popular, you can say that he's got some charisma and some good opponents, some good fights to make, but he ain't pound for pound. Nothing about him is pound for pound.
That's the one thing that's very hard to envision. A day coming where Ryan Garcia is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport?
I don't think that's ever going to happen. So he can be successful, make a lot of money, maybe win another belt. Big maybe, because I don't think he's that good. He can do some things, but becoming the face of boxing, I think that's what's going to hold him back. He doesn't have the consistency,
the ability, the discipline of his predecessors.
I see a slacker when I look at Ryan Garcia. A guy who's maybe got talent, but doesn't want to work hard. And hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's why Rolly beat him, isn't it?
How do you get outboxed by Rolly Romero? It's one thing to go in there and get clipped. A hard punch got through. That's one thing. But for you to lose rounds to this guy over the course of 36 minutes...
Think about it. A guy who can't beat Rolly Romero is going to be the face of boxing?